Welcome back to the Rundown. Well, the coming week will be an important one in the commemoration of the Holocaust. On Monday Eve, Israel will begin marking Yom HaShoah, its National Holocaust Remembrance Day. And next Wednesday, Israeli President Isaac Herzog travels to Poland to take part in a ceremony commemorating the 80th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising alongside the Polish President Andrzej Duda. Now, that event will be shadowed somewhat by the controversy that erupted earlier this week when reports came out of a draft of the Israeli Education Ministry's agenda for the renewal of Israeli high school trips to Poland for Holocaust education. Now, those trips had been canceled or suspended by the previous Israeli government over a dispute with the Polish government, which has sought to downplay any Polish anti-Semitism during the Second World War. Now, the renewed agenda, which follows the reestablishment of ties between Jerusalem and Warsaw, or full ties, I should say, reportedly requires or recommends that Israeli groups visit memorials to Poles who were involved in some of the persecution of the Jews. The former Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, now opposition leader Yair Lapid, called the new agreement a surrender to Poland, a national disgrace. The current Education Minister, Yoav Kish, denied there was any change to the school trips. He called these reports, quote, fake news. But the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial Museum says the agenda promotes, quote, problematic sites inappropriate for visiting on education trips. And with us in studio is Cولט Avital. She is a board member of Yad Vashem, chairperson of the Central Organization of Holocaust Survivors here in Israel, and a veteran Israeli diplomat and politician, we should say. Cولט, now let's expound on that statement from Yad Vashem. Are there problematic sites in this new agenda?
Absolutely. I think that, to say the least, this kind of agreement is problematic. It is disturbing, actually, because it creates a whole symmetry. I mean, you must remember that in 2018, there was a first agreement that was signed between Israel and Poland after a dispute about the Polish law, the Polish Holocaust law.
Right.
The Polish Holocaust law and the whole trend in Poland today and of this government, of the current government, is in a way to rewrite history, meaning we create a kind of a symmetry. The Jews have suffered, but also the Poles have suffered. But you cannot put them on the same level. You cannot create this kind of equality. And if I look at the agreement, almost in each and every one of the paragraphs, I see the symmetry. We are going to discuss the Holocaust, but also other crimes. We're going to visit Holocaust sites, but we're going also to go to museums that speak about the... And for me, the worst part in reading that agreement was that we're going to educate the children in what is our common legacy. And I'm asking you, what is the common legacy of the Jewish people and the Polish people? Certainly, we have had, maybe in the past, a good history of the Jews in Poland, but we have had the dark hours, and I don't think we share a legacy.
Right. Now, the education minister I mentioned, Yoav Kish, who, of course, was involved in drafting this new agreement, said, responding to Yair Lapid, said the previous government, quote, was responsible for destroying relations with Poland and is, quote, now trying to do what he, Lapid, does best, ruin international relations. Now, you are also a veteran diplomat. We should... is this Israel sacrificing some interests on behalf of other interests, diplomatic interests?
As a diplomat, I can say that there's always a dispute between your national interests, meaning you want to sell armament or to be, to get the support of Poland in the European Union and so on and so forth. I can understand that there's the interest of the country, but there's also, where the country of the Jews, we have principles. We have to abide and to live by those principles. We have a history. We have a history on the soil of Poland. It was not perpetrated by the Polish people as a whole and by the Nazis, but...
Right, we should be clear, we're not arguing that
yeah,
at all.
But
yeah. They were an
very
occupied
clear,
country,
yeah, but there were also Polish collaborators. There are at least 200,000 Jews that were murdered or given away to the Nazi authorities by Polish citizens. So you cannot deny that. And what is really happening? I mean, this trend, and it's not only in Poland, it happens in Hungary, it happens in other countries. It's not Holocaust denial anymore. It is worse than Holocaust denial because it is rewriting history, and when you rewrite history, there's an element of truth. And when there's an element of truth, it's always more difficult to put the things in order. And what the Poles are doing is that they're downplaying or almost not mentioning the fact that yes, it's true, there have been Poles who saved Jews, and probably the largest number of Poles, of citizens who saved Jews were in Poland, and that is something that
right,
we
the highest number of righteous Gentiles
That's
is recognized by Yad Vashem, as
That's
they're
correct.
called, are Poles, are in
But on the other hand, there's also the largest number of citizens, of Polish citizens, who murdered or who gave away Jews. And this is a page in your history which you cannot deny, because if you deny it, you don't take responsibility and you don't educate people the way you should educate them. And if the purpose of the trips of the youth to Poland is to learn about our history, I have nothing against. On the contrary, I think it's a very good idea that they meet with Polish youth. I think it is a very good idea that they open their horizons and learn about another country and its past history. Certainly, and I'm for dialogue, and I'm for understanding, and I understand that also the Polish people suffered. But there are certain proportions, and there are certain things that cannot be denied in the history, and one has to face them.
Right. Colette, if there's any organization in Israel that I would think should be involved in, or at least consulted in discussions with Poland on these trips, it would be Yad Vashem, an individual, perhaps even someone like yourself. So let me ask you about that process.
Well, Yad Vashem was no part of it, and it's a shame because it should have been. And I might add that the only thing, because the Poles also insist that when they're in Poland, they should have Polish guides, and if you have Polish guides, this is the way they will tell the history. Now, I think the most important thing that Yad Vashem and other institutions like Yad Vashem can do is to prepare the children before they go and to give the whole story to the children so that they're aware and that they don't fall into the trap of falsifying history. So the preparation and then the wrap-up when they come back is extremely important.
Okay, but that's under the assumption that these trips then will continue under this set of criteria set by Poland.
Well,
is it worth it to have, certainly going to these places is a profound experience, everyone knows that.
It's a profound experience. It's also a question at what age people go, when they can really understand and have an emotional kind of experience, which then they can work out and understand what has happened. But it's also important to visit other places. I mean, there camps in other places,
sure,
not only in Poland.
In Germany, certainly,
in
for
Germany
example.
and in Austria. So certainly Poland is not, and I think the other thing is it's also the duration of the trip. To my mind, I don't think the children have to be a whole week in Poland. I think that 2 or 3 days should be sufficient. And in the past, I objected to some of these trips because they were extremely expensive, and because as a result of them being very expensive, part of the population couldn't afford it.
Right, which became a related to social issues and social gaps here in Israel.
So therefore, I think those trips, first of all, this is an agreement that has been signed but hasn't been ratified by the Knesset. So it still has to be ratified by the Knesset. And I assume that there will be members of parliament who will think and who will speak the way I do and who will try to bring maybe some changes into this agreement. And let us hope that somehow the children will understand and will also come back with the right message. And I think the most important part, and this is where Yad Vashem comes in, bringing in the right message.
Right. We should just note Yom HaShoah coming up next week.
Yeah.
And of course, Yad Vashem will play a central role in that commemoration, yes?
Yes, and obviously the day after the commemoration of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and I will be going also.
Oh, so you were also part of that delegation
I'm going
to
there.
Poland and I guess be interacting with Polish officials themselves.
Well, I've been interacting for a long time
Right.
now because I'm heading a museum which is in the making, which is the Warsaw Ghetto Museum. And I'm there to make sure that the story is told correctly.
All right. Well, we certainly wish you a good trip next week to Poland and a timely one. And we thank you for joining us
Thank you so much.
on I-24 News.